February 24, 2026. A man most of the world had never heard of 6 months ago has just become one of the most powerful people on the planet. He controls the world's fourth largest army. He is months away from possessing nuclear weapons. He has publicly vowed the destruction of Israel and the humiliation of the United States. His words echo through the mountains of Iran, resonate in the corridors of power in Tehran, and send shockwaves through Western capitals. Washington watches nervously. Jerusalem prepares its defenses, and the world holds its breath. But here's what will take your breath away for a second. A Jewish prophet, living 2,500 years ago in ancient Babylon, described this man. Not vaguely, not symbolically, not with poetic language that can be interpreted in 1,000 different ways, but with details so specific, so impossible to be coincidental, so precise in their description of his military strategy, his geographical position, and even his aggressive personality, that when you see what I'm about to show you, you'll have to choose between two options. Either Daniel was a time traveler who somehow traversed the centuries and saw the future with his own eyes, witnessing events that had not yet happened, or God is orchestrating world events exactly as he said he would, moving kings and nations like pieces on a cosmic chessboard, fulfilling every word written millennia ago. Daniel chapter 8. Written in 551 BC, almost 600 years before Jesus was born, 2,577 years before today. Think about that for a moment. 2,577 years. 103 human generations. Entire civilizations have been born and died since these words were written. Empires have risen to power and crumbled to dust. Technologies that Daniel couldn't even imagine have been invented. And yet in this chapter, Daniel sees something so clear, so detailed, that it seems like he's watching CNN live. In this chapter, Daniel sees a ram with 2 horns, attacking in 3 specific directions, west, north, and south. And no animal, no nation, no power can resist it. It becomes extremely powerful, dominating its region, expanding its influence through proxies and allies, controlling vital resources. And then Daniel receives the interpretation of this vision, not from a scholar of his time, not from a rabbi trying to decipher obscure symbols, but from the angel Gabriel, face to face, a celestial messenger descending from the throne of God to explain exactly what all this means. And Gabriel says 7 words that change absolutely everything. 7 words that connect ancient prophecy with modern headlines. The ram represents the kings of Persia. Persia, the biblical name, the ancient name, the prophetic name of Iran. But here's the mind-blowing problem. When Gabriel told Daniel this in 551 BC, the Persian Empire didn't even exist yet. It wasn't even a remote possibility on the political horizon. Babylon still ruled the known world with an iron fist. Persia was irrelevant, insignificant, an obscure province that nobody took seriously. But 12 years after this prophecy, in 539 BC, something extraordinary happened. Cyrus the Great conquered Babylon in a single night. And Persia, that nation that didn't exist when Daniel prophesied, became the dominant world superpower, exactly as Daniel saw it. The prophecy was fulfilled with absolute precision. Or has it already been completely fulfilled? Because there's a phrase in Daniel 8 that most people skip, a phrase that changes everything. Verse 17. Gabriel looks directly at Daniel and says these words, "Understand, Son of Man, for the vision concerns the time of the end." The time of the end, not 539 years before Christ, not the ancient Persian Empire of Cyrus and Darius, not the era of Alexander the Great, but the time of the end, the last days, the final era of human history before the return of Christ. Now, videos like this, revealing biblical prophecies that are being fulfilled right before our eyes, are extremely rare. So to avoid missing any biblical documentaries, like this video now and subscribe to the channel, because what we're about to unpack in the next few minutes will completely change the way you see biblical texts, and you won't want to miss the next chapter of this prophetic revelation. What if Daniel wasn't just seeing the past, wasn't just predicting events that happened more than 2,000 years ago, but was seeing them today? What if the ram he saw attacking aggressively in 3 simultaneous directions is Iran in 2026? What if the new supreme leader of Iran, this man who has just assumed power, is the final fulfillment, the climax, the last manifestation of the prophecy that began 2,500 years ago? Before opening Daniel 8 verses, before decoding every symbol, every detail, every word that this prophet wrote, you need to understand who Daniel was. Because what you are about to discover is so impossible, so specific, so completely outside of any rational explanation or statistical coincidence, that the only way you can accept it as truth is if you first understand one fundamental thing. Daniel was never wrong. Never. Not once in 70 years of prophetic ministry. 605 years before Christ, Jerusalem falls to the armies of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, the most powerful king in the known world, conquers Judah and destroys Solomon's temple. And he does something strategically brilliant. He doesn't kill the brightest, most talented, most promising young men in Jerusalem. That would be a waste of human capital. Instead, he kidnaps them. He tears them from their families, their culture, everything they knew. He takes them to Babylon, the most advanced city in the ancient world. He intensively trains them in Babylonian culture, the Chaldean language, astrology, magic, everything. He transforms them, or at least tries to, transform them into loyal advisors to the Babylonian Empire. Daniel was about 15 years old when this happened, a teenager, torn from his family at a vulnerable age, taken to a foreign land where everything was different, forced to eat food that violated his Jewish religious laws, placed in an intensive, sophisticated indoctrination program, specifically designed to make him forget the God of Israel and serve the gods of Babylon. The pressure was enormous. The temptation was real. Most would have given in. Most would have conformed. But Daniel refused. He drew a line in the sand and said, "This far, no further." And it was precisely in this moment of resistance, in this moment of faithfulness under extreme pressure, that God began to show him things that no other living human being could know, secrets hidden in the future. Daniel chapter 2. Nebuchadnezzar, the all-powerful king of Babylon, has a disturbing dream. He wakes up in the middle of the night, terrified, sweating with his heart racing. He knows the dream is important, knows it contains some vital message, but he can't remember the details, so he does something absolutely insane. He summons all the magicians, all the astrologers, all the enchanters, all the sorcerers, all the wise men of Babylon, and says, "Tell me the dream I had and its interpretation. If you succeed, you will be rewarded with unimaginable riches. If you fail, you all die. All of you, without exception." Problem: he doesn't tell them the dream. They need to guess both the dream and its meaning. Impossible. Completely impossible. And they know it. The wise men of Babylon openly confess, "King, there is no one on earth who can do what you are asking. No magician, no astrologer, no enchanter has ever been asked to do such a thing. No one can reveal this to the king except the gods, and the gods do not dwell with mortal human beings." Nebuchadnezzar, furious at this answer, orders the immediate execution of all the wise men of Babylon, including Daniel and his friends, who technically were part of this group. When the soldiers come to arrest Daniel for execution, he requests an audience with the king. 1 night, 24 hours. Nebuchadnezzar, impressed by the courage of this young Hebrew, grants it. Daniel returns home. And he prays. He and his 3 friends gather and cry out to the God of Israel, asking for mercy, asking for revelation, asking for a miracle. And during the night, God answers. God reveals to Daniel both the dream that Nebuchadnezzar had and the complete interpretation. The next day, Daniel enters the palace, and with a confidence that comes only from genuine divine revelation, he looks at the most powerful king in the world and says, "You dreamed of a giant, immense, terrifying statue. Its head was of pure gold, its chest and arms were of silver, its belly and thighs were of bronze, its legs were of iron, and its feet were a strange mixture of iron and clay, which did not bond properly. And while you were watching, a stone was cut out without human hands, struck the feet of the statue, and the whole structure collapsed. And then the stone grew until it became a huge mountain that filled the whole earth. Nebuchadnezzar is absolutely shocked. How do you know? How is it possible? And then Daniel, this exiled teenager, gives the interpretation that would change the course of prophetic history forever. The head of gold is you, Nebuchadnezzar, you and your Babylonian empire. But after you will come an inferior kingdom represented by silver, and after that another kingdom represented by bronze, and then a fourth kingdom, strong as iron, which will crush and break everything. And in the time of those kings, the God of heaven will establish a kingdom that will never be destroyed, that will never pass to another people, and that will remain forever. This was said in 603 BC, and then watch history unfold exactly as Daniel prophesied. Babylon, the Golden Empire, fell to the Medo-Persian Empire, the Silver, in 539 BC, 64 years after the prophecy. Persia, in turn, fell to the Greek Empire of Alexander the Great, the Bronze, in 331 BC. Greece was eventually absorbed and conquered by the Roman Empire, the Iron, in 146 BC. And it was during the rule of the Roman Empire, the Fourth Iron Kingdom, that Jesus Christ was born in Bethlehem, lived, died, resurrected, and established the kingdom of God that will never end. 4 consecutive world empires, predicted in perfect chronological order, with specific characteristics of each described with precision, centuries, literally centuries in advance, by an exiled teenager who had no access to any privileged information, no military intelligence, no political advisor. Daniel chapter 7. Years later, the same prophetic sequence, but now shown through different symbols. 4 beasts emerging from the sea, representing the same 4 kingdoms. A lion with eagle's wings, Babylon. A bear, raised on one side with 3 ribs in its mouth, Medo-Persia. A leopard with 4 heads and 4 wings, Greece and its 4 divisions after the death of Alexander. And a 4th, terrifying beast, unlike all the others, with iron teeth, Rome. Same pattern, same sequence, same absolute precision. But Daniel didn't stop there. Daniel chapter 9 contains one of the most mathematically precise prophecies in the entire Bible. Daniel predicts the exact year, not the decade, not the century, but the specific year in which the Messiah would be cut off, killed, executed. He says that from the decree to rebuild Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, totaling 69 prophetic weeks. In the biblical prophetic calendar, each week represents 7 years. 69 prophetic weeks equal 483 years. The decree to rebuild Jerusalem was issued by King Artaxerxes in the 20th year of his reign, recorded in Nehemiah, chapter 2. Historians date this precisely to 445 BC, specifically the month of Nisan. If you count 483 years from that date, using the prophetic calendar of 360 days per year that the Bible consistently uses, you arrive at the year 33 AD. And in what year was Jesus Christ crucified? 33 AD. In the spring, during Passover. Exactly when Daniel said it would happen. 483 years before it happened. This is the man who wrote Daniel 8. This is not a vague mystic, not a charlatan astrologer writing ambiguous generic predictions that could fit practically any event if you force the interpretation. This is a prophet with a documented, verifiable, irrefutable track record of 100% accuracy over 70 years of prophetic ministry. Every prophecy Daniel made came true exactly as he said. No flaws, no errors, no adjustments needed. So when Daniel, this same Daniel with this impeccable track record, says he saw something specific about Persia in the end times, when he describes a ram attacking from 3 directions in the last days, you should pay close attention. Very close attention indeed. 551 BC. Daniel is now approximately 70 years old. He is a respected elder. He survived the fall of Babylon, the empire that had captured it decades before. He now serves in the administrative court of the Persian king Cyrus. He has seen with his own eyes the prophecy of Jeremiah fulfilled. 70 years of Jewish exile ending, his people beginning to return to Jerusalem to rebuild. God has been faithful in everything, but God has not finished speaking to Daniel. There is still more to be revealed, much more. Daniel 8, verses 1 and 2. In the 3rd year of King Belshazzar's reign, a vision appeared to me, Daniel, after the one that appeared to me at the beginning. And I looked in my vision, and I saw myself in the citadel of Susa, which is in the province of Elam. And I looked in the vision, and it seemed to me that I was by the Ulai River, in the province of Elam, southwest Persia, a specific region that today corresponds to southwestern modern Iran. Daniel was not physically there. This was a vision, a spiritual experience. He was supernaturally transported in spirit to that specific geographical region. And what he saw there, what God showed him happening in that precise location, left him so disturbed, so shaken, so completely emotionally devastated that he said in verse 27, I, Daniel, was weak and sick for some days. Then I got up and attended to the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but there was no one who understood it. The vision was so intense, so violent, so beyond anything his mind could process, that he became physically ill, not just mentally disturbed, not just spiritually distressed, but physically ill for several days from seeing what God planned to do with Persia. He saw a ram, and then a goat, and a brutal battle between them, and then consequences that would extend through the centuries. And all of this was so beyond his comprehension that no one in his time could fully grasp its meaning. But we, in 2026, with Iran's new leader looking directly into the cameras of the entire world, making explicit threats, building nuclear weapons, funding terrorist proxies on 3 continents, forming alliances with other world powers, we can understand. We are seeing the prophecy unfold live, in real time, in the headlines every day. Daniel 8, verse 3. I lifted up my eyes and saw, and behold, a ram stood before the river, and it had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher one came up last. First specific detail we must observe carefully. 2 horns, not 1 horn, not 3, exactly 2. Gabriel leaves no room for creative interpretation or vague symbolism. Verse 20. The divine interpretation, given directly by an angel. The ram with 2 horns that you saw are the kings of Media and Persia. Media and Persia, 2 distinct peoples, 2 different ethnicities with separate cultures and histories, which united politically into a single empire in 550 BC when Cyrus the Persian conquered the Medes and officially founded the Medo-Persian Empire. But note the crucial prophetic detail. 1 horn was taller than the other, and the taller one rose last. Which horn, which people, which ethnicity was taller, more dominant, more powerful? Persia. Cyrus was Persian. The ruling dynasty was Persian. The kings who followed were Persian. The Medes were politically absorbed and integrated, but the true power, the real leadership, the ultimate authority was in the hands of Persia. And notice this specific prophetic phrase, the highest one rose last. What does this mean historically? Media existed as the first kingdom. Media was the regional power before Persia. But then Persia emerged. And when Persia emerged as a political and military force, it quickly dominated, quickly surpassed, quickly became the predominant power. The horn that rose last became the highest. Perfect historical accuracy. Now pay close attention because this is where it gets absolutely chilling. Modern Iran, 2026. 2 horns, 2 power structures, 2 factions fighting for control. Horn number 1, the civilian government, the president, the parliament, the majlis, the ministries, the visible political structure that the world superficially sees. Horn number 2, the supreme leader, the clergy, the ayatollahs, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, the Guardian Council, the religious theocratic structure that actually governs behind the scenes. And which horn is truly the loudest? Which structure holds the real, absolute, unquestionable power? The supreme leader and the religious structure. The president of Iran cannot make important decisions without the approval of the supreme leader. The supreme leader can veto any law passed by parliament. The supreme leader directly controls the armed forces, especially the Revolutionary Guard. The supreme leader appoints the judges of the supreme courts. The supreme leader controls the state media. The supreme leader is the true absolute power. This is the loudest horn, and this highest horn rose last in modern history. How? 1979. The Islamic Revolution that completely transformed Iran. Before this revolution, Iran was a secular constitutional monarchy under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi. The government was secular, influenced by the West, modernizing. Without theocracy, without a supreme leader, without total clerical control. But then, something dramatic happened. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile in France. He led a massive popular revolution. He overthrew the Shah. And he established a completely new system, Velayat-e-Faqih, the rule of the Islamic jurist. The position of supreme leader was created. The religious horn rose, and this horn that rose last became the highest, the most powerful, the most dominant. Exactly as Daniel saw 2,500 years earlier. He saw the dual power structure. He saw one horn taller than the other. He saw the tallest one rise last. And all of this is manifesting in modern Iran with photographic precision. Coincidence or prophecy? Daniel 8 verse 4. I saw the ram butting westward, northward and southward. No beast could stand before it, nor was there any that could deliver out of its hand. But it did according to its will, and became great. 3 specific geographical directions: west, north, south, not east. Interesting. Why not east? Because east of ancient Persia, east of modern Iran, lies Afghanistan, Pakistan, and possibly India and China, nations that historically were not primary targets of Persian expansion. But west, north and south, these are the exact directions of historical Persian expansion and modern Iranian influence. Let's examine each direction in specific detail because what you're about to see is so accurate it seems like Daniel had access to military intelligence reports from 2026. Western Iran. What lies immediately west of ancient Persia, west of modern Iran? Iraq, then Syria, then Lebanon, then Israel, then the Mediterranean. Iran today, at this very moment as you watch this video, controls extensive power networks in this western direction. Shiite militias in Iraq, paramilitary groups like Hashd al-Shabi, Kataib Hezbollah, which are essentially extensions of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, operating on Iraqi soil. The regime of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, kept in power almost exclusively by massive Iranian military and economic support, with thousands of Iranian fighters and their proxies fighting alongside Syrian forces. Hezbollah in Lebanon, perhaps Iran's most powerful and sophisticated proxy, a veritable army with an estimated 150,000 to 200,000 rockets and missiles pointed directly at Israel, trained, funded, armed, and strategically directed by Iran. And Hamas in Gaza, more. Recently, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, both receiving significant funding, weapons and training from Iran to continue resistance against Israel. A westward surge. Iranian influence extending like tentacles throughout the Fertile Crescent. Northern Iran. What lies to the north? Azerbaijan, with its predominantly Shiite population. Armenia, Georgia, the former Soviet republics of the Caucasus. And further north, Russia. Iran today has developed one of the most significant geopolitical alliances of the 21st century, the Iran-Russia Strategic Partnership. Deep military cooperation, transfer of advanced weapons technology, including Russian S-300 air defense systems to protect Iranian nuclear facilities. Coordination in Syria, where Russian and Iranian forces operate side by side. Exchange of Iranian Shahed drones for Russia to use in the war in Ukraine in exchange for Russian military technology. Economic agreements to circumvent Western sanctions. Joint military exercises in the Caspian Sea. This northern alliance strengthens every year. The last sentence, taking it north, is a colloquial expression and doesn't translate directly. It's a playful, nonsensical phrase. Southern Iran, what lies to the south? The Persian Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, that vital geographical bottleneck through which approximately 20% of all the world's oil must pass. Yemen, in the Arabian Peninsula, then Somalia and the Horn of Africa. Iran dominates this direction through multiple means. The Houthis in Yemen, a Shiite rebel movement that Iran supports with weapons, training and intelligence, have attacked commercial ships in the Red Sea, causing international shipping crises and forcing shipping companies to reroute around Africa, drastically increasing costs. Effective Iranian control of the Strait of Hormuz through military capabilities to block or threaten oil shipping, giving Iran a powerful economic weapon against the West. Growing presence through proxies and religious networks in Somalia, Djibouti, and other Horn of Africa nations. Rampages to the south, 3 directions, west, north, south, exactly as Daniel described in 551 BC, 2,577 years before it happened. And each direction is not vague, not symbolic, but corresponds precisely to real, documented, verifiable Iranian geopolitical and military strategies that any intelligence analyst can confirm. And note the final prophetic phrase of this verse: none of the animals could stand before him. Modern translation: no single nation in the region can effectively resist Iranian influence without massive external support. Israel constantly fights Iranian proxies, but cannot eliminate them completely. Saudi Arabia tries to contain Iranian influence in Yemen, but cannot defeat the Houthis. Iraq wants full sovereignty, but cannot expel Iranian militias. Iran continues to expand, continues to push, continues to establish more influence, and it did as it pleased, and grew greater. Iran in 2026 is more powerful than at any time since the Islamic Revolution of 1979. 4th largest army in the world in terms of personnel. Advanced nuclear program, estimated to be months, perhaps weeks, away from nuclear breakout capability. Officially classified by the United States as the world's largest state sponsor of terrorism. Self-proclaimed leader of the axis of resistance against Israel, the United States, and their allies. Doing as it pleases. Growing greater. Reaching the peak of power. Exactly as the prophecy describes, it must happen before what comes next. But here's something that will completely change how you see this prophecy. Something that biblical scholars have discussed for centuries but is rarely taught. The profound question that nobody asks: why specifically a ram? Why did God choose to show Persia as a ram specifically instead of any other animal? Lion, eagle, bear? Why a ram? First, cultural reason. In the traditional Persian New Year, Nowruz, a celebration that dates back more than 3,000 years and is still the most important holiday in modern Iran, the sacrifice of a ram is absolutely central to the festivities. The ram is the sacred animal, the animal of celebration, the animal that represents life and provision in Persian culture for millennia, even before Daniel wrote this prophecy. Second, astrological reason. In the traditional Persian and Babylonian zodiac that dominated the thinking of the ancient world, Aries, the ram represents royal power, conquering leadership, and dominant military strength. Ancient Persian kings consciously identified with the symbol of the ram as a representation of their authority. Third, linguistic reason, and this is profoundly significant. In biblical Hebrew, the word for ram is ayil, but ayil doesn't just mean the animal ram. It's a term with multiple meanings depending on the context. Ayil can also mean powerful leader, chief, commander, elite warrior. It's an intentional play on words embedded in the very language of prophecy. The ram is the leader is the ram. They are linguistically interchangeable. God did not choose this symbol randomly or arbitrarily. He chose the exact symbol that Persian culture itself uses and recognizes to represent power and leadership. And here's where it becomes absolutely surreal. Do you know what the official emblem, the national symbol of the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran is? a golden lion, holding a sword, positioned before a radiant rising sun. This is the symbol that appears on their military flags, their uniforms, their vehicles. But do you know what this lion represents in the ancient Persian mystical traditions that still subconsciously influence Iranian culture? The protective guardian of the sacred ram. The lion protects the ram. Modern Iran, without fully realizing it, without conscious intention, still symbolically identifies with Daniel's ram. They are fulfilling a 2,500-year-old prophecy without even knowing they are fulfilling it. They have chosen symbols, developed strategies, and made decisions that align perfectly with words written centuries before their modern nation existed. Is this coincidence, or is this God orchestrating human history? But Daniel's vision doesn't end with the ram becoming great and dominating its region, because then, suddenly, something completely impossible happens, something so dramatic that it changes everything. Daniel 8, verse 5. And as I was considering, behold, a goat came from the west across the face of the whole earth without touching the ground, and the goat had a prominent horn between its eyes. Let's analyze each part of this description, because every word is significant. A goat came from the west. West of where? From Daniel's point of reference. He is visionarily positioned there on the Ulai River in southwestern Persia, so west of there. What is west of Iran? Iraq. Immediately. Then Syria, Turkey, Greece, Europe, crossing the Mediterranean, North Africa, crossing the Atlantic. America, the West, the entire Western world, across the entire earth. This is a crucial phrase, not about a region, not about a part of the world, across the entire earth. The goat dominates globally before confronting the ram. This is a world superpower, not a regional power like the ram. The ram dominates its region. The goat dominates the world, but without touching the ground. Literally impossible. How can an animal cross continents, cross oceans without touching the ground? In 551 BC, when Daniel wrote this description was completely incomprehensible. There was no technology, no concept, no reference in all human experience that could explain movement across great distances without touching the ground. But in 2026, military aircraft, long-range strategic bombers, intercontinental ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, attack drones, supersonic fighter jets, dominant air force, projection of power through air capability that literally doesn't touch enemy ground but can destroy targets with surgical precision. Daniel saw modern military technology. He had no words to describe airplanes, so he said it the only way he could, without touching the ground. And that goat had a prominent horn between its eyes. A horn signifies power, authority, leadership in consistent biblical symbolism. But one horn, singular, not two like the ram. One. What does this mean? Unified power, centralized leadership, not divided among competing factions, a clear chain of command, an authority structure, a superpower with centralized command. Daniel 8, verse 21. Gabriel provides a partial interpretation, but the shaggy goat is the king of Greece, and the large horn that was between its eyes is the first king. Greece? Yes. In the initial historical fulfillment of this prophecy, the fulfillment that occurred in antiquity, the goat represented Alexander, the great and the empire he built. He came from the west, from Macedonia to Greece. He conquered the known world at an unprecedented speed, taking only 10 years to conquer territory from Greece to India, moving so fast that it seemed not to touch the ground. And he completely destroyed the Persian Empire at the Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. Perfect prophetic fulfillment, documented history, confirming every detail. But here's the problem. Remember verse 17? This vision refers to the end times. Alexander the Great did not live in the end times. He did not live in the last days. He died in 323 BC at only 32 years old, 2,349 years ago. So Daniel saw two fulfillments. A historical fulfillment that has already happened, Alexander, and a final eschatological fulfillment that happens in the end times. Now, the pattern of Alexander repeats itself. The prophecy has layers. So who is the modern-day scapegoat of the end times? Which power comes from the West in relation to Iran? Which nation dominates the entire Earth with a global military presence? Which country has such dominant air power that it can strike targets anywhere in the world without putting troops on the ground? Which superpower has unified executive leadership, a single commander-in-chief controlling all the armed forces? There is only one possible answer when you honestly examine the evidence: the United States of America. And I know what you're thinking. This is forcing the Bible into modern politics. This is reading the United States into texts where it's not mentioned. But wait, let me show you something. Does the Bible mention the United States of America by name? Obviously not. The name didn't exist. But it also doesn't mention Iran by name. It uses Persia, the ancient name. It doesn't mention many modern nations by their current names, but it does describe their characteristics, their geographical locations, their prophetic roles. And she consistently describes a dominant power of the West in the last days that executes divine judgment on rebellious nations. Isaiah 41 verse 2 speaks of God raising one from the east, but east from the perspective of Jerusalem, west from the perspective of Babylon, where Daniel was. Same prophecy, different geographical perspectives. And notice what Daniel saw happen when the goat finally confronts the ram. Daniel 8 verses 6 and 7, "And he went to the ram that had the two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran at him in the fury of his strength. And I saw him come close to the ram, and he was enraged against him, and struck him, and broke his two horns. And there was no strength in the ram to stand before him. And he threw him to the ground, and trampled him underfoot. And there was no one who could deliver the ram out of his hand." Analyze every word of this description because it is devastating. Enraged against him, not calculating, not reluctant, not hesitant. Enraged, rage, fury. The goat does not attack coldly with strategic indifference. He attacks with burning fury. Why? What did the ram do to provoke this furious response? The prophecy doesn't specify completely, but we can deduce. Did he threaten vital allies of the goat? Israel, perhaps? Did he cross an absolute red line by developing nuclear weapons? Did he attack critical economic interests? Whatever the specific trigger, Daniel saw not diplomatic restraint, but military fury. And he broke both its horns. Both horns. Both of them. Both the civilian government and the religious leadership. The entire dual power system of Iran. Completely broken. Not weakened, not contained. Broken. For there was no strength in the ram to resist it. All the Iranian military might, the entire Revolutionary Guard, all the regional proxies, all of Hezbollah's 150,000 missiles, all the Russian equipment, all the rhetoric of resistance, none of that matters. Nothing can resist when the goat attacks. And he threw it to the ground and trampled it underfoot. Total humiliation. Complete domination. It's not a prolonged conflict with years of back-and-forth combat. It's quick, decisive, annihilating. And there was no one who could save the ram from his hand. No ally came to the rescue. Russia did not save it. China did not intervene militarily. No one could save it. The ram falls on its own. This is not economic sanctions. This is not diplomatic pressure. This is not long-term containment. This is total military. Annihilation of the Iranian nuclear program, of the leadership, of the capacity to project power. And when does this happen? Daniel 8, verse 19. "Behold, I will make you know what shall happen in the latter time of wrath. For it pertains to the appointed time of the end." Last time of wrath. Appointed time of the end. Not maybe, not possibly someday. Appointed time. Marked on God's eternal calendar. Decided. Decreed. Inevitable. And now you need to ask an honest question. Do you really think it's mere coincidence that all these things are happening simultaneously? Iran closer to nuclear capability than at any point in history. Iran-Russia alliance stronger than ever. Iranian proxies massively attacked Israel on October 7, 2023. US-Iran tension at its most explosive point since the 1979 hostage crisis, and a new supreme leader just recently assumed power in Iran. All at the same time, all converging, all aligning exactly as ancient prophecy described. Impossible statistical Coincidence? Or preparation for final prophetic fulfillment? And now we come to the point where you'll see things in Daniel 8 that you've probably never heard in any sermon, any Bible study, any popular prophecy book. 3 details that 99% of Bible teachers completely miss. But when you see them, everything changes. Hidden detail number 1, the precisely specific geographical location where Daniel received this vision. Daniel 8, verse 2. I looked in my vision, and I saw that I was in the citadel of Susa, which is in the province of Elam. And I looked in the vision, and it seemed to me that I was by the Ulai River. Elam province. Do you recognize that name? You should, because there's another prophetic book that speaks extensively about Elam. Jeremiah 49, verses 34 through 39, an entire prophecy dedicated to the future judgment of Elam in the last days, the same geographical region that Daniel is visionarily visiting. Southwest modern-day Iran. And here's what will make your hair stand on end. Where exactly are Iran's main nuclear facilities located today? Natanz, Fordow, Arak, Isfahan, Bushehr, all located in the ancient region of Elam. Daniel was transported spiritually, prophetically, to the exact geographical epicenter where 2,500 years in the future, Iran would build its uranium enrichment plants. Ground zero for the nuclear program that is causing this international crisis. Geographical coincidence, or was God showing Daniel the precise location of the coming conflict? Hidden detail number 2, why was the ram specifically in front of the river? Daniel 8, verse 3, and I lifted up mine eyes, and behold, a ram stood before the river, before the Ulai River. Why does this specific geographical position matter? In Hebrew, the word translated as before is al-penei. This word can mean confronting, guarding, controlling access to. The ram wasn't just near the river by chance, it was strategically positioned before the river. Controlling the river, guarding access to the water. Water is power in the Middle East. It always has been, it always will be, and Iran today controls water in ways that give it tremendous geopolitical power. It controls the headwaters of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers through complex dam systems that can affect water flow to Iraq and Syria downstream. It controls the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most strategic water bottleneck, through which 20% of all global seaborne oil passes. It has repeatedly threatened to block this strait as a weapon against the West. It controls significant portions of the Persian Gulf. Water means power. And Daniel saw the ram before the river because he saw control of strategic water resources. Hidden detail number 3, what without touching the ground really means militarily. Everyone says speed when they read without touching the ground, but there's something deeper. In the context of ancient warfare, touching the ground meant territorial occupation. Conquerors touched the ground of enemy territory because they marched through it, camped there, occupied cities, established garrisons, and stayed. Alexander the Great touched Persian ground. He and his army marched through the territory, fought massive land battles, occupied Persian cities, and stayed there. Alexander remained in Persia. But the goat of the end times, according to Daniel, doesn't touch the ground. Modern translation: airstrike without ground invasion, precision bombing without occupation, destruction from a distance, cruise missiles launched from ships in the Persian Gulf, B-52 or B-2 strategic bombers dropping 30,000-pound GBU-57 bunker busters capable of penetrating hundreds of feet of reinforced concrete to destroy underground nuclear facilities. F-35 fighters with GPS-guided bombs hitting targets with meter-level precision. MQ-9 Reaper drones, all from the air. No ground troops invading, no occupation, in and out. Destroy the Iranian nuclear program without putting a single American soldier on Iranian soil. Daniel saw 21st century military doctrine. He didn't have the vocabulary for airplanes, so he described it as not touching the ground. But now we need to connect Daniel 8 with another prophecy because they don't exist in isolation. Ezekiel 38, the invasion of Gog and Magog. And when you put the two prophecies side by side, a surprising chronology emerges. Ezekiel 38, verse 5. Persia, Cush, and Put with them, all of them with shield and helmet. Persia again. Iran. But here Persia is not the main aggressor. It is part of a coalition. Allied with whom? Gog, from the land of Magog, the prince of Rosh, Meshech, and Tubal, from the far north of Israel. Russia. Ezekiel sees a military alliance, Russia from the north, Iran, Turkey, Meshech, and Tubal, Libya, Put, Sudan and Ethiopia, Cush, all attacking Israel, are together in the last days. Does this alliance exist today? Absolutely. Russia and Iran are close strategic partners. Turkey oscillates between NATO and the Moscow-Tehran axis. But here is the critical question that determines chronology. If Ezekiel 38 shows Iran attacking Israel as part of a Russian-led coalition, and Daniel 8 shows Iran being destroyed by the West, which happens first? The answer changes everything about how we understand future events. Option 1. Daniel 8. First, Iran is destroyed by the West, nuclear program eliminated, leadership decapitated, massive power vacuum in the Middle East. Then Russia, seeing an opportunity, moves to fill the vacuum, assembles a coalition, invades Israel, attempting to dominate the region. Ezekiel 38 follows Daniel 8. Option 2. Ezekiel 38 first. Russia-Iran coalition invades Israel. God supernaturally destroys the invaders. After that, the weakened remnant of Iran is finished off by the West in Daniel 8, which makes more prophetic sense. Examine the internal chronology. Ezekiel 38, verse 8. After many days you will be visited. At the end of the years you will come to the land that has recovered from the sword, and that has been gathered from many peoples. After many days. End of the years, not immediate. Israel in relative safety. Daniel 8, verse 19. Last time of wrath. Appointed time of the end. Last time. Final. Climax. Most likely sequence. Phase 1. Now 2026, increasing tension. Phase 2, Daniel 8. Iran destroyed by the United States, nuclear program eliminated. Phase 3, regional power vacuum. Phase 4, Russia takes advantage of the vacuum, assembles a coalition, Ezekiel 38. Phase 5, invasion of Israel. Phase 6, God destroys invaders, Ezekiel 39. Daniel 8 is the trigger that causes Ezekiel 38. The destruction of Iran destabilizes the regional balance. Russia sees an opportunity, moves to dominate. We are seeing preparations for both prophecies converging, and now we return to the starting point, the new supreme leader of Iran. The man who recently assumed power. 6 months ago, most of the world didn't know his name. He wasn't the obvious successor. He wasn't an international favorite. He wasn't the moderate the West expected. But when the previous leader was removed or died, the assembly of experts chose him, and immediately everything changed. His first speech wasn't about reconciliation. It was confrontation, not moderation. It was radicalization, not openness to the West. It was absolute resistance, declared destruction of Israel, proclaimed defiance of the United States, accelerated nuclear program. Western analysts were shocked. They expected pragmatism. They received pure ideology. But anyone who has studied Daniel 8 shouldn't be surprised, because the ram in the last days is not peaceful. Daniel 8 verse 4. I saw the ram butting westward and northward and southward. Butting, aggression, violence. The ram provokes, attacks, confronts, and no animal could stand before it, nor was there anyone who could deliver out of its hand. But it did according to its will and magnified itself. He grew arrogant, pride, arrogance, hubris. The ram reaches the peak of power, and it is precisely at this apex that the goat attacks. Why? Because if Iran were destroyed when it was weak, no one would recognize it as prophetic fulfillment. But when it is destroyed at the height of its power, when it has nuclear weapons or is about to have them, when it dominates the region through proxies, when it openly challenges a superpower, then the whole world sees. This was not just a normal war. It was divine judgment, fulfilling ancient prophecy. So what now? You've witnessed 2,500 years of prophecy converging in 2026. Daniel predicting the Persian Empire before it existed, describing Alexander the Great 2 centuries before he was born, mapping modern Iranian military strategy with impossible precision, prophecies that defy rational explanation being fulfilled before your eyes in daily headlines. The question is no longer, is the Bible true? The answer is in every newspaper. The question is, if God foresaw Iran's fate 2,500 years ago, if he orchestrated the rise and fall of empires, if he controls human history from beginning to end, what does he want from you? Daniel 12:3. Those who are wise will shine, like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness, like the stars forever and ever. Those who are wise, not the ignorant, not those who close their eyes, those who see what God is doing and respond. Daniel saw prophecies. He spent 70 years praying, fasting, and interceding. He not only knew, but acted. Ezekiel saw the invasion of Gog. He spent decades warning Israel. He not only saw, but warned. Jesus saw the last days. Matthew 24:42 said, "Watch therefore, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming." Don't speculate on dates. Be vigilant, be ready. Live as if I were returning today. If Daniel 8 is about to be fulfilled, if we are truly in the appointed time of the end, then the time for eternal decisions is ending. Not tomorrow, now. If you have never accepted Jesus Christ as Savior, today is the day, not out of manipulated fear, but because the Bible is showing God is real. Prophecy is real. Judgment is real. Salvation is also real. Jesus said in John 14:6, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Even God, who foresaw the fate of Iran, provided salvation for you. Pray with me. Jesus, I acknowledge that I am a sinner, lost without you. I believe that you died on the cross for my sins and rose again. I receive you now as Savior and Lord. Forgive me, save me, transform me. In your name, amen. If you prayed sincerely, welcome to the family of God. When Daniel 8 is fully fulfilled, when the ram falls, when the world realizes that the Bible was right, you will be ready. Because you are not waiting for prophecy to be fulfilled. You know the God who wrote prophecy. And you, who have made it to the end of this complete documentary, I want to know. What do you think about this prophetic moment we are living in? Comment below what you see. Your perspective is important. While the world watches news without understanding, we are decoding biblical truth behind each headline. Content like this, connecting ancient prophecy with current events, revealing what is hidden in the scriptures, is extremely rare. If this video opened your eyes, leave a like and subscribe, because the next prophetic chapter could begin at any moment. Much more revelation is coming. In the next video, we will delve even deeper into the end times prophecies being fulfilled now. You won't want to miss it. See you there. And more importantly, see you in heaven.